Today I'll be responding to the claim that same-sex marriage benefits the economy. My opponent's secondary claims are that the Constitution protects the rights of homosexual couples, not allowing same-sex marriage is unconstitutional, and finally that same-sex marriage would help American society as a whole. These claims are very problematic and are merely assertions or premises to an actual claim of same-sex marriage boosting the economy. I believe one of the propositions stated has grounds to be a good claim, but it is it's burdened down by the other two claims that she made. My opponent goes on to explain how same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. This claim definitely does not have anything to do with the benefit to the economy when accepting same-sex marriage. It doesn't match the main claim. Here, she used a quote from Curtis Wong of the Huffington Post, stating that Proposition A was deemed unconstitutional by a federal appeals court in August of 2010. Not only is this piece of evidence outdated, but it's invalid for the claim. The main reasoning of this argument is basically the unconstitutional side of same-sex marriage, and I don't agree with the main claim. My opponent explains and reasons the problem that people are being treated unequally and therefore is unconstitutional, but this is not strong enough. People are being mistreated every day, so that claim would be invalid. I will be going against my opponent's claim and making my own claim that same-sex marriage has a negative effect on the youth. Tracy Hansen, a psychologist, cultural commentator, and author, states that same-sex marriage may be in the best interest of adult homosexuals who yearn for social and legal recognition of their unions, but it's not in the best interest of children. Many people that support same-sex marriage believe that love is all a child needs, but are wrongly mistaken. According to decades of research and Dr. Hansen, the ideal family structure for children is a two-parent mother-father family. Research consistently shows that children raised in such families are more likely to thrive psychologically, mentally, and physically than children reared in any other kind of family configuration. Also, according to Dr. Hansen in her publication of The Therapist, extensive research also reveals that not only mothers but also fathers are critical to the healthy development of children. Swedish researchers reviewed the best longitudinal studies from around the world that assess the effects of fathers on children's development. The review spanned 20 years of studies and included over 22,000 children and found that fathers reduce behavioral problems in boys and psychological problems in girls, enhance cognitive development, and decrease frequency. Children appear most apt to succeed well as adults when they spend their entire childhood with their married mother and father, and especially when the parents remain married to the present day. University of Texas sociology Professor Mark Regnerus said in his study, "A strong and healthy mother and father marriage is vital to children's upbringing." On the Wisconsin Fathers for Children and Families website, I found statistical information from the National Center for Health Statistics stating that a single child 3 to 4 times is more likely to have emotional or behavioral problems. Also, that 84% of teens hospitalized for psychiatric care come from single-parent homes. My opponent argued that same-sex marriage benefits the economy. In fact, same-sex marriage is actually very harmful to the economy, for the economy. Our economy is based on trade production, consumption, and the very future of this falls in the hands of our youth. The youth is the future and always will be. However, how they will either positively affect or negatively affect our economy is up to us. How we raise our children, who raises them, and what they're taught is very important to a child's upbringing. Trace Hansen states that as mental health professionals, Dr. Trace Hansen states that as mental health professionals, it's our ethical and moral obligation to support policies that are in the best interests of those who we serve, particularly those who are most vulnerable, namely children. Children are the most vulnerable, and therefore it is our duty to guide them mentally and physically through their life. A rise in troubled children can either mentally or physically. A rise in troubled children would most definitely hurt our economy.
All right, well, you started off pretty well indicating what the main and the secondary claims are, and then suggesting that the secondary claims are not really relevant to the main proposition. Your explanation about the constitutional issue is okay as it applies to whether or not it's economically desirable or undesirable. I think it's understandable how that doesn't really fit the issue. Your argument on Proposition 8 and the court ruling was a little unclear. I guess it sounds to me like you were trying to say the ruling on it being unconstitutional is actually going the opposite direction. It says that this proposition is unconstitutional, but that's not the same thing as prohibiting gay marriage is unconstitutional. I think that's the inference that you're trying to make, but you need a clearer declarative on that particular point. On the argument that follows, most of what you have that follows up here is basically an argument that says same-sex marriage produces some kind of harm to families or to kids, and that as a consequence, the harm to families and the kids are going to be harmful to the economy. So in essence, it's all a counterclaim that's coming later. I did think that you found quite a bit of evidence on the counterclaim to suggest that problems exist when there isn't the kind of family structure that is ideal. I think you need a little bit more demonstration that gay couples are incapable of providing that kind of backup. I think that there are some presuppositions built into the research that you've got here, and that needs to be clarified. The idea that it has an economic impact, I think, is probably true, but that's a little bit of a stretch. You need to show that it's going to have that kind of an impact, and the evidence that you have later on is mostly about single-parent families as opposed to same-sex couple parent families, and so I think that's a little bit of a stretch there. On the presentation, you're going to watch this and you're going to probably notice that you do some things that you don't realize that you're doing while you're speaking. It looks like you've got an exercise thing going on here, you know. Yeah. We're doing the Macarena. Da, 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 da. You know, that's where all your anxiety is coming out, you know. And I tell you what, the truth is, if you just start talking to people, you'll do less of that kind of stuff. It's because you're thinking, I'm being up here, and what do I do with my hands? If you're talking to people, if you're having a conversation with people, you're much more likely to act in a natural way and gesture like you would if you're having a conversation. No, that doesn't make any sense, or of course that sort of thing happens. So try and work on that a little bit. I know, you know, we haven't heavily emphasized those kinds of things, but that's something that was noticeable in your presentation. Don't worry too much about it. It's not affecting your grade that much. Tiny bit.